I'm sure all of you are familiar with the self-diagnoser, a very common type of user on the internet who, based on some random article they found on Facebook, comes to the conclusion that they have depression, anxiety, bipolar, OCD, or whatever other disease the article told them they had. They don't get tested by a medical professional, of course, they just believe this random thing they read online. And then they feel compelled to announce this self-diagnosis to everyone, either by putting it in their bio or posting about it outright. Of course, most of us hate this type of person and brush them off as an annoying, attention-seeking dipshit. But lately, a similar breed has been lurking in our society. People who diagnose not just themselves, but others. People who have decided that just because they read a few articles and watched a few TikToks, they now have the agency to diagnose those around them with mental disorders despite never being asked to do it, nor having the qualifications needed to do so. I bring this up because this seems to be a very normalized practice nowadays. I've had people walk up to me and tell me that I have OCD, autism, ADHD, NPD, all sorts of different things. Literally out of nowhere. Like, we could be talking about something completely different or not talking at all, and they just come up to me like, dude, you probably have ADHD. Sometimes a classmate does it, sometimes a family member, sometimes even just a random stranger on the internet. And none of these people ever stop to consider just how rude and disrespectful it is to say those kinds of things. It might be hard for someone who's never been on the receiving end of this to understand why it's rude, but imagine somebody goes up to you and says, hey, by the way, you're pretty ugly, you should consider getting plastic surgery. You'd probably take big offense to that kind of remark, and so would the people around you. They'd be like, yo dude, what the fuck, you can't just say that type of shit. And they'd be right, because it doesn't matter if you actually believe the person is ugly or if others around you think the same, you're not in a position to give someone negative comments about their physical appearance. You can discuss it with the people around you if you really want, but you can't tell that person directly. Or for example, a lot of women do not like being told that they look tired. Trust me, I know from personal experience. Because women put a lot of effort into their looks, and when you're calling them tired, they take it as you saying that their appearance isn't good enough. You may not mean it that way, but that's how a lot of them perceive it. Most people understand this and avoid commenting on someone's appearance in a negative way. But for some reason, this attitude is not reciprocated in regards to mental health. People think it's completely okay to just go up to somebody and tell them that they have a mental illness, and when you get mad at them for trying to armchair diagnose you, they got all defensive and are like, relax dude, I was just trying to give advice. And yeah, most of them likely were not doing it to insult you. They were probably just trying to give advice. But that's not how it comes across. The thing is, there are certain types of advice that you cannot just give in a vacuum. There has to be context that justifies giving it. You have to understand that this is not just some mundane thing like telling someone that their fly is open or that they have ketchup on their face. Mental health is a very sensitive subject that can take many years to address, and saying that somebody has a mental disorder or mental illness is a very serious claim that affects people on the personal level. Just like physical appearance, mental health is one of the biggest parts of your public image. You always want people to think highly of you and see the best version of yourself. And ideally, you want to hold yourself in high regard as well and have self-worth. And when someone just randomly approaches you to tell you that you have a disorder, they're basically saying, hey, you're not actually as good as you think you are. It's like calling someone ugly, but instead you're calling them mentally ugly. You're bringing the person down and making them self-conscious. Even if you have good intentions, and even if your quote-unquote diagnosis turns out to be correct, mental health is a boundary you do not cross unless the person specifically allows you to. What I mean by that is, if somebody comes up to you, talks about their struggles and asks for advice, and you suspect that it might be a mental disorder, then yes, you can tell them that. Or for example, if you're having a discussion on mental health and everyone is sharing their behaviors and experiences. Or, on the off chance that someone's mental health makes them a public nuisance and is hurting you somehow, then it probably is a good idea to tell them to get it checked out and taken care of. But if, and only if, you're in those kinds of situations. And even then, make sure they actually have multiple symptoms of a disorder and not just, oh, you fell asleep in class once, therefore you probably have narcolepsy. Because that happens a lot too. Like, not only do these people come out of nowhere to diagnose you, but they do it with the most bullshit evidence. For example, I'm kind of a hypochondriac, and this one time someone tried diagnosing me with OCD because I use lots of hand sanitizer. I honestly don't even know what to say to that. Like, it's just stupid. Now, admittedly, I probably have a stronger reaction to this than most because I've had some people try to diagnose me in a way that was either condescending or borderline gaslighting. But how do people not see the problem with going up to someone and basically saying, hey, did you know that you're disabled? Now, I'm not saying that you can never say anything negative to anyone because, oh, negativity is bad. We want everyone to always be happy and positive. No, obviously, sometimes negative things have to be said. But typically, negative things are only said in specific contexts. Like, you don't just go out on the street and start randomly insulting insulting people. And trying to diagnose someone without context is the equivalent of going out on the street and randomly insulting someone. But for some reason, a lot of people don't realize that. They think they're just giving a neutral standard piece of advice, but they're not. They're effectively attacking that person's image, even if that wasn't the intention. It's kind of like how some people don't like being corrected because even though you're just trying to set the facts straight, they see it as you calling them stupid. Now, those people aren't super common, so you don't have to make that assumption when talking with someone. But when it comes to mental health, you absolutely should make that assumption because rest assured that most people do not like being randomly approached about that. Besides, at the end of the day, when you try to list off somebody's flaws like that, you're objectifying the person. You're not treating them like a human being, but like a science experiment or a zoo animal that you're studying and observing to make conclusions about. People do not like being studied unless they're at a doctor or in a situation where they're open to that. Don't try to give people your analysis of them without them asking first, because they don't want to hear that shit. You wouldn't randomly go up to someone and say that there's something wrong with their face, so don't randomly go up to people and say that there's something wrong with their brain. And yeah, guys, that was the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did enjoy it, please do consider hitting that like and subscribe button. As always, this was your captain speaking, and I'll see you later.